Hello guys, welcome or welcome back to my channel. Today, as I have already promised in my thumbnail, and as you guys have already seen in the thumbnail, we are going to look into my answers, how I wrote it during my UG and PG days. Also, I want to tell you that I have qualified for UGC net, so I have uploaded everything regarding UGC net, the book list, the strategy, the paper 1 preparation, paper 2 preparation, note making, digital note making, everything on my channel. You can just go and check it. That will be very helpful to you if you are also planning to sit for the UGC net exam. So yeah, let us begin with today's video. So the question that I have taken here is comment on the significance of the title of Virginia Woolf's work, Mrs. Dalloway. I have the answer with me, you can see on the screen. So the question here is a very common question. Significance of title is asked to us multiple times. Also, this pattern will be equally applicable to dramas and poetry. Please do not think that this is only for novel. No, this will be equally applicable to dramas and poetry. Okay. So let us begin with the answer. What I believe is that the beginning needs to be very contemporary. You cannot directly jump into the novel, but if the beginning is contemporary and relatable, so it becomes easy to connect, and I guess it will fetch more marks because I literally did this in my every answer. So let us see how I have begun with the answer. As an individual living on the earth, our life is strongly anchored by the events circulating us. There are some events which does not only impact a single person but the humanity as a whole, as seen in the case of the World War. So here I have began from the contemporary situation and I have slowly moved towards the World War. Now I will move towards the novel. So I have used a quotation as Virginia Woolf in Mr. Bennett and Mrs. Brown writes, on or about December 1910, human nature changed. This change became more rapid after the World War. Such was the change that it became strongly reflected in the literary text too, as seen in the case of Mrs. Dalloway. So, this is how you have to write your introduction. After that, in the second paragraph, as I have already mentioned, we have to talk about the author. So, let us see what I have written over here. Virginia Woolf was an English writer. She is popular for both fiction and non-fiction. The novel as a genre started to become popular in the Victorian age, but the experimentation with novel became evident in the modern age. Virginia Woolf is often credited with popularizing the genre of stream of consciousness, as Adele in the psychological novel wrote. The influence of James Joyce upon her is much more profound than is generally believed. So the introduction of writer here is very text centric. I have not written anything or anything and everything about Virginia Woolf, but I have focused on that much portion only which needs to be written over here according to the question. You cannot write everything about Virginia Woolf that you know. The introduction of author needs to be very question centric. Also, I have used quotations from time to time. Why? Because this makes an impression that I have not limited myself only to the text, but I have read multiple things in order to frame my answer. So this will definitely fetch me more marks. Okay, now after introduction and author's introduction, the third paragraph needs to be about the summary. So for those people who have not seen my last video on the pattern or structure of the answer, please go and see it. There I have talked about how you need to break your answer into different parts, how you need to arrange them chronologically. After you see that video, this video will be more helpful for you. That video will help you to understand this video in a better manner. Okay, so now let's move into the third paragraph. It is obviously the summary, but again the summary needs to be question centric. You cannot write everything. The story of Mrs. Dalloway revolves around the single day in the life of the titular character Clarissa Dalloway. The protagonist in the very beginning could be seen saying that she would buy flowers herself, and eventually we can see how Mrs. Dalloway, despite of being in the present physically, is often in the past mentally. She often thinks of the time when she was 18 years old. In the end, we come across a party hosted by Mrs. Dalloway where all the people who she thinks about come together. So here you can see I have written Mrs. Dalloway in two ways. Firstly, at some places I have underlined it and put it in quotations, and in some places I have written only Mrs. Dalloway. Why have I done it? Whenever I talk about Mrs. Dalloway as a text, I underline it and put it in quotations. Whenever I talk about Mrs. Dalloway as a character, it remains in the normal font. I do not need to underline it. So take a note of this. Now let us move into the fourth paragraph, where we will talk about Mrs. Dalloway as an individual. So Clarissa Dalloway has a habit of hosting parties as confirmed by Peter, who tells in the course of the novel that Mrs. Dalloway is always giving parties to cover silence. She began giving parties after the death of her sister Sylvia, which gave her a realization that life is short and must be lived to the fullest. And she understood what Cunningham in the novel The Hours opines, that you cannot find peace by avoiding life. Mrs. Dalloway seems to live by this principle. So here I have talked about the character Mrs. Dalloway, because we have been asked to talk about the significance of title, and the title is similar to one of the characters, we have to speak about her. And also because it is the question is about title in general, we have to include other characters as well. That I have done in the fifth paragraph. Let's move to the fifth paragraph. The war had a very devastating impact on the entire humanity. We can see this here in case of Clarissa and Septimus. We can often see that Clarissa and her husband are thankful that they survived the Great War, as the Independent called it, but it can be understood that the trauma persists in case of Septimus. His trauma becomes highly evident. Okay, so slowly from Mrs. Dalloway, we are moving towards the next character, that is Septimus. Septimus is a war veteran. He married an Italian girl, Lucrezia, but their marriage was not a happy one. The main reason of which was Septimus's mental health. He was suffering with what is called post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD. He often thought that his dead friend Evans is still alive, and his memories constantly kept haunting him. His state could be compared to what Joyce in Ulysses writes, "History," Stephen said, "is a nightmare from which I am trying to recover." So here also again you can see I have used many intertextual references again to create an impression that I have not only limited myself to the text, but I have read wide area of other things as well to frame this answer. Okay, so this shows my effort. This is not only to create a fake impression, you have to do this, otherwise you cannot put in the quotations in such a well arranged manner. Okay, now let us move to the seventh paragraph. One of the main reasons for Mrs. Dalloway hosting parties was to bring people together and spread happiness and a feeling of collectiveness in the time of fragmentation. She wanted to keep sadness and dullness away, but death enters her party when Mrs. Bradshaw reveals that Septimus has committed suicide. She feels fragmented and goes inside her room. Her state here could be compared to Mrs. Ramsay of Wood's work To the Lighthouse, who says that "I am drowning, my dear, in the seas of fire." But soon the same death makes her cling to her life even more deeply, and she emerges from her room fresh and full of life. So here you can see again from Septimus we are moving towards Mrs. Dalloway, because we were asked to talk about Mrs. Dalloway. Also, we have to keep this in mind that for several writers, their life has been majorly reflected in their works. Okay, so Virginia Woolf is one such writer whose life is majorly reflected into her works. So here I have written this in 8th paragraph, where I wrote, "The novel, though named Mrs. Dalloway, majorly revolves around two characters, Clarissa and Septimus. A close analysis highlights that both these characters strongly represent the psyche of Woolf. Mrs. Dalloway loved to bring people together, mostly the intellectuals. The same was evident in case of Woolf. Also, just like Septimus towards the end of Woolf's life, she could hear voices and ultimately ends up committing suicide. Thus, Clarissa could be seen to represent Woolf's past and present, whereas Septimus represented the future." Okay, so this is how you arrange your answer. Here you can see that the answer is not only limited to the title, but we have dealt with different characters and now Woolf the author as well. This really makes the examiner understand that you really have read well. You haven't limited yourself to the summary of answer that many students end up doing. Whenever they are asked to write the answer, they are only writing summaries. This is not the way to deal with the answer, guys. You have to write it in a very arranged manner. You are writing answer as a literature student, so you need to focus on the on not only the text but many different things as well, that will make your answer more enhanced, that will make your answer fetch you marks. The answer will not only be about summary, summary, summary. No, you have to incorporate other things as well, as I have done here. Also, let us move to the conclusion now. The modern mass, just like Clarissa, thought that it might be possible that the world itself is without meaning. Clarissa often has the nostalgia of past. This was mostly before the World War had taken place. Thus, we can understand that after World War, she feels like a living dead and doesn't understand anything happening around her, and the past feels more close and dear. This is why the critic Jenny Offill, in A Lifetime of Lessons in Mrs. Dalloway, writes that Mrs. Dalloway is remarkably expansive and an irreducibly strange book. The characters often find themselves entangled in the past and find it hard to be in the present. This is how the World War impacted the lives of the masses, well represented by Woolf through the character of Mrs. Dalloway and other characters like Septimus, adding to the significance of the title Mrs. Dalloway. So this is how the conclusion ends. The conclusion needs to be more of your insight. The entire answer sheet can be from the insight of critics, from the insight of research papers, from the insight of summary, from the insight of other text, but this conclusion needs to be totally yours. This needs to be your understanding of the answer. This needs to be your understanding, your perspective, your opinion of the question asked here. So yeah, this is how you need to write your answers. This is how, if you arrange your answers, you will be getting more marks. You will definitely get more marks than all your classmates who are not following this structure. Also, this is what I wanted to tell you about how I wrote my answers, but I will bring a next video where I will tell you where to find quotations from, where to find intertextual quotations from, where to find critiques from, how to cite critics, how to cite essay, how to cite uh, book, how to cite a book chapter, how to cite a poetry from the collection, how to cite a drama, how to cite maybe a short story. So yeah, the next video will be totally about all these things. Also, I will tell you about several websites where you will find all these quotations easily. Okay, so thank you. Please subscribe my channel. If you like the content, follow it, share it with your friends. So thank you, and please subscribe it if you like it.